we have to remember, and I pulled it up because I wanted to remember the
Mm.
19. It was a case in the 80s of a 12-year-old boy who was allowed to divorce his parents.
Yes, I remember
And
that.
I believe that was part of the cultural shift that started to empower kids. So much so that now the law shifted where you made teachers the saviors of black kids. If they saw a mark on their forearm, you get to call up to the school, have the parent arrested in front of the entire school, carted off the court, and now the parent has to pay for parenting classes.
The Crucial Combo Podcast. You could be anywhere if you're on this channel. Thank you for tuning in. To the Crucial Combo Podcast. All right, welcome back to the Crucial Combo Podcast. I have another illustrious panel with me tonight. Of course, I got my man Tony Briscoe. What is good?
What's good? What's good? I'm good, people. Good to be here,
All is
man.
good. And
Yes,
of
sir.
course, I got my twin Yaya. What's good?
Man, I'm good.
Everybody's good.
Can't complain. Mm-hmm.
Yes. So it's a lot going on in the world, of course. We were talking offline about, parenting and the challenges of parenting. And it's one of those things, man. It doesn't come with a manual. It definitely does not come with a manual. All of us have kids. So what made me want to do this particular episode? So there's a book by this woman named Dr. Stacy Patton. And I saw a video of hers. We're friends on Facebook too, so I'm going to try to get her on the show at some point. But she wrote a book called Spare the Kids, and it talks about why whoopings will not save Black America. Whipping children will not save Black America. So it had me thinking, like, I really want to get in tonight about our own history as far as getting whoopings, how we feel about it, how we look at discipline in the past, and how we look at discipline currently in current day, and how we think things should be in relation to the Black community, but also in relation to in general as far as parenting. Let me let you get in. We were talking offline, Tony. I want to let you get into what you were going to say because we were talking about a few things. So
Yeah, absolutely. So, great topic, man. And I think, coming up in the foster care system, my mom left my brother and I with my grandfather. Well, actually, she didn't. She left us with a friend of hers. I remember her riding off into the night in a storm in a black cab, and I didn't see her again for quite a few years. But growing up, my grandfather was the disciplinarian. And he was brutal. I mean, I don't know if y'all ever went to the barbershop and you saw how they used to sharpen the razors with the leather straps.
Mm-hmm.
That's what my grandfather used to discipline us with. If he wasn't using his fist, he was using that leather strap. And I mean, this thing was like that, maybe that thick. And I mean, he was brutal, but it was only when he was drunk. When my grandfather was not intoxicated, he was the most gentle man. He talked to you firmly, never cussed at me when he was sober at all. So going into the foster care system, my cousin who raised us, I mean, she just had a pretty heavy hand. I mean, she had a heavy hand. She was single mom. She took my brother and I in. She wasn't single that entire time, but after he split, things just kind of got progressively worse. And so physical discipline is something I just don't support in this day and age. And it's not to use that's how slaves were dealt with punishments. Like, I think people throughout history have been physically disciplined one way or the other, but it's just not something, I've wanted to do. I think I had to spank my daughter once. And after that day, I decided never again. And I think she was, I don't know, maybe 8 years old. And not that becoming a yeller was better, but it helped me just kind of take away that physical type of discipline that I think has been over penalized on just black kids, but I also still think it's something that I can call part of the slave mentality where, you were beat out of anger for not doing something. And most of that aggression comes from a place of anger. It comes from a place of not being able to control my own emotions. It does not come from a good place. And so that was my take on it. But especially after growing up like that, and my cousin, love of the life, rest her soul, she did the best she could with four knuckleheads. So, but to say that, I wanted to raise my child different from my upbringing, and so if there was a timeout I could put her in, that's not white discipline. That's just a form of discipline that worked for us. And
Mm-hmm.
so, you know, yeah, I just physical discipline. I just think it boils down to emotional control.
There's so many ways to look at it, right? So, and if you don't mind me asking, Tony, how old was your daughter when you gave her that one spanking?
Yeah, I think she may have been 8 years old,
Okay.
and it wasn't a long, detailed spanking. Um, it was enough for me to just say, you know what, I don't want to do this anymore. Like this
Yeah.
is I knew from my upbringing that this never now our generation, it was used for correction. I
Right.
understand.
Right.
And for me, I'm gonna say it did work. It worked for all of us. So, but I just still was like, if I am to grow from faith to faith, if I am to grow in life and be better and get better as a people, I can't
Mm-hmm.
take on old habits of doing things the way they were done to me just for the sake of saying, well, that's how I was done when I was growing up. So this is just natural. No, be it natural or not, is not something I want to naturally find in my relationship with my daughter. But
Mm-hmm.
again, I will say the replacement for that was a higher tone. The replacement for that was showing a lack of emotional intelligence by yelling. So it's not like I did anything better, but
Yeah.
that physical discipline that I received growing up typically followed verbal abuse and physical abuse. So and
Okay.
so it's like I didn't say I didn't. I'm not saying I mastered this thing perfectly by any means, but those marks, those hits, I still have a laceration in my back from when I was a child
Wow.
that is there permanently. And so that's always a reminder. My
Mm-hmm.
mom boyfriend, I remember one night he beat me in the head. I don't know if your dad ever had one of the old shoe horns that went into the shoe. Those were
Oh,
the
those.
solid oak ones.
Yeah, those
Yeah,
were heavy.
so people were like, I stopped growing, I started growing my hair out more and more because people were like, man, you got a bald head. What's that scar in your head? Well, talking about that scar brings back memories.
Mm.
I was scratching my head today and I felt it, right? And so, you have all these triggers. I don't want my daughter to know me as that person that whooped her so hard out of my
Right.
own anger that I left a mark on her body. And that mark is permanent, like the laceration that's on my back from an extension cord, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so I didn't want my daughter to grow up like, oh yeah, I love my dad, but he was a brute. I didn't want
Mm-hmm.
that. So she'll be able to tell her grandchildren one day that your grandfather was a yeller, but she will never say that he was a beater or physically abusive. Again and again, I don't judge people who choose to use that form. I just say, are you doing this to correct or are you doing this because you mad and you upset? I had a partner call me one day and he was like, man, I need you to call such and such. He was talking about his son. I need you to call such and such, man. This dude, I walked into the crib and he's smoking weed. And I asked him, are you mad he's smoking weed or are you mad he found your weed and smoked it? And
Right.
he was like,
Right.
man, that's a very good question. I have to think about that. And I said, I just want you to think about it. Are you mad you caught him smoking weed or are you mad he smoked your weed?
Mm. I would say our generation of parents are somewhat in the middle on this issue. I think a lot of us are kind of rethinking or analyzing how we grew up, and it's a mixture. Some people in our generation are like, I don't whip my kids, similar to what you just said, because of how I grew up, and then some are kind of in the middle.
Let me name one more thing before I move on.
Yeah, go ahead, please.
I will also add, and this is going to be the hypocrite in me speaking right now.
Mm-hmm.
If I had a boy, I can't say that I would do the same thing. So let me confess. Let me confess to my
That means
high and
that you wouldn't.
mighty. Let me confess to my high and mighty. I got a girl. I don't want her to be raised like I was raised. If I had a boy, I think I would be more challenged. And I'm gonna name
Now
that and let somebody else speak.
you are going into some good waters here, because this is, we're gonna get into this, and Ian have boys too, so we're gonna get into this, and oh man, we're gonna get into this. So I'm gonna just say briefly, because I wanted everybody to kind of go through how they grew up, and then we can kind of get into how we're thinking. So I love how you started off, Tony, with how you came up. Now, for myself, growing up, I didn't get a lot of whoopings. I got probably about three or four, and of course, y'all know we grew up in the same house. So my dad was very gentle, loving dad, right? He's similar to myself, I would say. I'm a gentle and loving dad. I mean, I love on my kids probably more than our parents did, because we're a little bit more, we show our emotions and kiss our kids a little more. But when I get mad, I don't play games either. You know what I'm saying? So my dad, I got a couple of whoopings. Now, I would say I probably got my last whooping when I don't know how old I may have been 8 years old or something like that. And I think that so when I got that last whooping, I was always with a belt. So my dad, I think he was swinging the belt, and he made a mistake, and the belt buckle actually clipped part of my head. And when he clipped part of my head, I know he didn't mean to do it, because that's not normally what he would do, but I guess he was just swinging the belt. And part of my head started bleeding. So I know he was so freaked out, and I remember, I think, yeah, if I'm not mistaken, I think
I said
he
something, and I got a whooping too for saying something.
did. You say,
'Cause
I don't see
yeah,
what I
I'm mad at him.
remember. Now I could be wrong, but what I remember is that I had blood on my shirt, and I think
Mhm.
it probably freaked him out.
It did
He
freak
did.
him out, and he reacted when I said something. I think that it made it worse, and so I
Okay,
remember I got a few lashes from that belt for calling him out on it.
but I'll tell you this. I think that wasn't intentional, and I think I never got a whooping after that. And never.
No, because when he was hitting me with the belt, he was like, "I didn't mean to. That was an accident."
Oh,
he, he was swinging at me, and he was hitting me with the belt, and I processed it as he's only hitting me with the belt because he feels bad about what just happened, and he's
hmm
reacting. Because
hmm
as he's hitting me, he's saying, um, "I didn't mean to. I didn't mean to. That was an accident. I didn't mean to."
yeah,
And I'm
because
thinking, okay, well, why are you taking it out on me? But you don't want to say anything else to make it worse, so I just took my took my lashes and let it be.
what I take from that is that that was the last time I got a whooping, and then I think every parent who gives a whooping at certain times, it hits them in a certain way, and they adults don't know. You think adults always have it together, but they really don't. You realize that when you become an adult, and you realize sometimes your parents don't know what they're doing either. Now, I say all that to say that we're going to get into this also too, because there's a line, I believe, between abuse and discipline, right? Some people put them all in the same basket, but that was my last whooping as a child. I never got one after that, and I think it's because my dad made that mistake, and that's what it was. He made that mistake, and he probably was like, I ain't doing this no more, because he was probably traumatized by it. And I still had the scar on my head for a long time. It's probably somewhere on my head somewhere, but nonetheless, I'll let y'all speak. But that part of that kind of shaped me in a way to make me think about whoopings when I had kids. So, but I'll let y'all rock, and then we could talk about what we doing now. But Ian or y'all, whatever, whoever want to jump in as far as
What specifically is the topic? As I jumped in mid conversation, I want to
Oh
make
yeah,
sure I'm on topic.
no problem. So we're talking about tonight, like, so this episode is actually inspired by Stacy Patton, Dr. Stacy Patton, right? I think you're friends on Facebook with her too as well, right? So she wrote the book, Spare the Kids, how whoopings will not save Black America. So I was like, you know what? Let's talk about it. And I wanted to get everybody's opinion about discipline, whether there's a
Is
place.
she not available to join us tonight?
You know what? I'm gonna try to get her on. I kind of just thought about it the other day because I got her book and then I saw a couple videos and I wanted to get her on, but I'm gonna try to get her on another time. Um, if you know her personally, you can tell her to get on. But,
That's what I'm trying to see what's up right
you
now.
know, but that's the topic is pretty much about. I want to get everybody's idea as to what they feel about the place of discipline as far as physical discipline. Where do you think it fits? Is that something you believe in? How did you grow up? Do you think it's something that um, is traumatizing, comes from colonization, slavery, all of the above about how you feel about physical discipline? But as of right now, I want to get an idea as to how everybody grew up and how you see discipline based on your childhood.
Well, you and I grew up in the same home, and we pretty much had similar experiences with mom and dad. Discipline is very difficult because you really have to assess the situation. And I have spanked my children. I don't spank them often. When I have spanked them, it's usually a couple whacks on the butt with my hand or a couple whacks on the leg. But the times that I have done it, it didn't leave me with a very good feeling about it. Because especially when you're teaching your children not to handle their problems by hitting other children, it's like, how do I teach you not to be aggressive with aggression?
Right.
How do I teach you good behavior by not modeling good behavior? But
Hmm.
I am one of those believers that feels that extreme behavior sometimes is going to require some extreme consequences, and of course I'll cross that bridge when I come to it. But I'm trying to employ disciplinary actions that will prevent me having to use anything extreme in the later on, by making sure that I am trying to manage their behavior in other ways, things like natural
Hmm.
consequences. Sometimes it's
Hmm.
like, okay, I'm not going to prevent you from doing that. I'm going to let you find out on your own the consequences of that, because a lot of times natural consequences is a very, very good teacher.
Right.
Taking things away, negative reinforcement, positive reinforcement, timeout, things like that. And what I find to be one of the most effective things is just communication. And it's kind of sad that in the Black community, there's almost an expectation that you need to beat your kids. It's almost like there's these extremes where you beating your kids, you cussing them out, you yelling at them all the time, or you're completely absentee. You just letting them do whatever they want to do, and don't care. And
Right.
some people play up, to those stereotypes. And I don't
Everybody
think,
does. The
we don't need
comedians,
to. Yeah,
everything. You know what I'm saying?
but the people who live those stereotypes, and they feel like that's the norm, and a lot of times
Right.
that's 'cause that's what they grew up with, that's what they've observed. But I think that as far as physical discipline goes, I don't think that it's 100% necessary. There, of course, I think there's going to be situations where you might that might be the only way to put some get right in them.
I say this, and then you could rock too. There's some people who lean against it all the way, like I'm not going to touch my children at all. But then it's difficult as a parent because it's easy to say that if your kids are young. It might be easier, like Tony said earlier, if you only have a daughter, right? Because we treat as fathers, I'd say we kind of look at that discipline a little bit different from son to daughter, possibly not every man, but I would say generally, and depending on how old your kids are. So, and I'm gonna play a video for y'all in a little while just to get y'all opinion about something because um I'll play it later. But it's something in relation to discipline. I want to get y'all opinion, but it's easy to say if you're not in a situation. So what are you thinking? Where do you stand on this? Because you have two sons.
I have three daughters and two sons.
Oh, okay, so you have the gamut. Okay,
Yeah.
so Well, if you don't mind me
It's,
asking,
it's
how did you grow up? Like how did you grow up as far as your discipline that you faced?
well, yeah, okay. Physical discipline was definitely part of the equation, and was it necessary? Not at all times was it necessary. Even in my case, my choice of using it, I will say physical discipline should happen at least once.
At least once per child per lifetime.
At least once per child per lifetime. Deeming that, and the reason why, because that's always serves as a reference point. And I'm talking about single digits, not, it shouldn't even get to the double. It shouldn't have to anymore
Right. I agree with you. I
because
actually
they'll
agree with you.
remember that one
Yeah.
and be like, look, you, no, we ain't trying to go there. Okay, we ain't trying to go there. Those of us who have lived through and grew up in physical discipline, who came to a certain age and became parents and have evolved somewhat and healed from childhood dramas and traumas and other stuff like that, we would tend to be more, in our opinions, I would say, more mindful and less use of force in that regard, because we would think of other means to use. It's never always necessary,
Right.
but I think one reference point is all a child really would need in most cases. Sometimes two. And of course every child is different. But the problem is with some there's a lot of parents out there that they lack the tools. There's a saying that every child deserves a parent, but not every parent deserves a child. There's unfortunately a lot of parents who are ill equipped, and because they're ill equipped, they lack the tools. They only have a hammer in their toolbox.
Right.
They don't have the other tools. So they only know that as a recourse on that tool only is every time as their means of correctness. And in my opinion, some of those occasions, it's laziness on their part, on the parents' part. And there's also a lack of accountability in some cases on is that child mimicking behavior that they've seen from you. And I say this often. To remind people, 7% of communication is verbal. That leaves 93% of communication left. That's nonverbal. We have to be aware of, just like the saying goes, it's not what you say, it's what you do. And that's definitely when it comes to our children. We can't always remove emotion out of it because we're all humans, but you should be controlled while you're doing so.
Grace, temperament, control.
Right. It should be controlled while you're doing that.
Whoopings are very popular in Black culture, American culture. Um, and I don't know if y'all ever, been to a comedy show, listened to a comedy show, and you hear the jokes sometimes, and sometimes it's funny, and then sometimes it's kind of like becomes a little bit of a cliche. As far as my mama whooped us so bad, da, 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 my daddy whooped us, and I think there's a good point there where part of us know that it's detrimental, and then part of us are somewhat accepting of it because we feel like, okay, sometimes it's needed. You know what I'm saying? So, but what I'm thinking is that I wanted to get everybody's opinion about the youth now. Looking at the youth now, what I mean by the youth, I'm talking about the teenagers and the early 20ers. And we were talking earlier about your nephew Tony. And when I look at teenagers now, and now I'm not saying what should be done per se, but I'm just making an analysis. When I look at teenagers now, they seem to me far more disrespectful. I see more kids cursing their teachers out. I've seen so many situations where kids are fighting their teachers, boys and girls, putting their hands on their teachers ready to fight. And I see people cursing out old people. I see people cursing in front of grown people, like a total disregard, especially the teenagers, high school age. Total
And see,
disregard.
that's what I want to avoid. right there.
Right. Well, let me set
There's
this up. Let me set this up, and then I'm gonna let everybody rock because I see that, and I ain't gonna lie to you. My first instinct is like, man, they need their ass. That's my first feeling, and I'm just being honest with you. Especially when I see these kids, I'm like, he need his ass whooped, or she need her ass whooped, and I'm like, man, the parent. And I'm not saying that the parents necessarily need to do it all the time, but I'm like, they, I kind of feel like part of parenting, there needs to be a lot of respect there. And to all of your points, right? About talking to your kids, communicating well, to your point, in having multiple tools in the toolbox. But I also believe there's a little bit of fear there. You got to have a little bit of fear, a little bit. That's just my opinion. So, what do y'all think
Tony,
about? Go ahead. What's that?
our children will expose in public what we teach and or fail to teach in private.
Sure.
So what you described is accurate, but it's a direct result of the lack of parenting that goes on from the generation before,
Right.
and et cetera, so on. And we have to realize also with the more influx of toxic viewing from our cell phones and everything else,
Right.
what goes viral are these toxic so and so, such and such.
Right.
Now, now for the older folks out there who's on the high horse, I want to tell you to come down a couple of notches because some of y'all still out there with these damn reality shows and the real knuckleheads from wherever. That was before the internet.
Right.
That was your thing. Nene Leakes went viral and whatnot because she was an idiot
Right.
on television. And that attitude and behavior, Cardi B's and all that, it's
Right.
become that's what the knucklehead shit was going selling. You know, was that World Star? Like that's the shit that people wants to go. So
It's become
unfortunately,
mainstream. One, I think that during our time, our parents worked a whole lot, and I think that man, when I was growing up, we didn't see our parents till nighttime. You know what I'm saying? We played
how many
outside.
channels did you have?
Huh?
How many channels did you
No,
have?
that's why I said I agree with you.
Okay.
I don't disagree with you. I don't disagree with you. I'm just challenging to throw in some, but I agree with you. The dynamics, you're absolutely right. The exposure to toxic stuff is off the charts, right? But these kids, they don't fear nothing no more. They don't fear anything. Like they will talk to you crazy, and it's like
But there are reasons, though, right?
mean,
Yeah,
I
yeah.
totally agree, and I totally agree. I agree with you as far as what's not taught and all the flaws come out. So I totally agree with you. I'm not off base with you on that.
Yeah.
Um,
I'm not
but
even talking about the talk part, though. I'm not talking about that. We have to remember, and I pulled it up because I wanted to remember the
mm,
19. It was a case in the 80s of a 12-year-old boy who was allowed to divorce his parents.
Yes, I remember
And
that.
I
Mhm.
believe that was part of the cultural shift that started to empower kids. So much so that now the law shifted where you
Mhm.
made teachers the saviors of black kids. If they saw a mark on their forearm, you get to call up to the school, have the parent arrested in front of the entire school, carted off the court, and now the parent has to pay for parenting classes. It happened to
but
a friend
black
of
parents
mine.
don't care about that.
Oh yeah, they do. You know why? Because a friend of mine had to pay a lawyer $18,000 to beat
Really?
the case of her son who jumped on her 9-year-old daughter and beat her to a pulp. And when she got home, she threw that dude all over that house and broke everything she could with his face.
Wow.
So he gets to school, he's got a mark on his shoulder, and the gym teacher,
Well,
what happened? Well, you
her
know, my
first
mom.
mistake was letting him go to school. She should have kept him home until he
Yeah,
healed.
but I'm saying this kid also pushing dope in high school.
Mm,
And so now the teacher who called the mom up there for a parent conference set her up to get arrested.
damn, that's crazy.
So now the kid has to go stay with grandma. And so now, because he's not with her, what do you think he's doing at school more now?
Yeah.
Cutting the rug, acting like a complete fool. And what if the teacher say 6 months later, well, I'm sorry, Miss Such and Such, I didn't know. It's because you're trying to be a hero. And so when the minute they decided, I had a cousin DCFS. She was like, "Yo, if you got discipline, cuz I'm gonna tell you the way to do it, so you make sure you don't leave no marks." I'm a,
Right.
and she was like, if you go this route, let me teach you how to do this, because she was like, I got 4 kids, I'm tearing them all up every opportunity I get when they out of line, But still, but you got to look at the
Marching the right
court
flag.
system that decided to now tell black parents, you don't know. Again, we talked about the case with my brother, right? You don't know how to raise your child. So you got the courts now where you got teachers trying to rescue a little black kid who's in a bad home, and the parents don't have any tools to operate. Baby, just because you grew up in Southern California and now you teaching in Chicago, you think you are the best parent. And so you got a court system that now operates against parents. Because depending on if you got a federal job and you get arrested, your job goes bye-bye forever. So now you got a parent who's already in a single parent home who now doesn't even have a job to take care of her family, that throws the entire parenting cycle out of whack. So you got that wayward kid, that wayward son, or that wayward daughter who now they're going to try to look and find peace somewhere. And sometimes that peace comes from the streets, or it comes from another man, another, it just comes from influences all around you. The thing that's worse now is now you got parents who discipline their kids and upload it to social media.
Right. That is crazy. Yeah.
Well,
So you're perpetuating. Go ahead, y'all.
Right there. That's just some foolishness, and this is the reason why conversation is and communication is key to disciplining your kids. Whether you use physical discipline or not, there has to be dialogue. There has to be healthy communication. Otherwise, beating them is not the end all be all. That's not the solver of the problems. Without that solid communication, you are losing. And that is one of the reasons why, and it's not just because I'm a licensed professional counselor, it's the fact that if you in any situation, right, most people know that psychological control is a whole lot stronger than physical hold. This is where Stockholm syndrome comes in. This is the reason why some people who are in situations where they've been trafficked, kidnapped, all situations, they might have the opportunity to leave, but they don't, because that psychological hold is a lot stronger. And I feel like with our children, there has to be a psychological component to where they are conditioned to understand what behaviors are acceptable and unacceptable. And that comes from dialogue. It does not come only from the physical, because if you have the physical and nothing else, all they're learning is aggression. They're learning anger. And then they take that to outside the home, and that's how they've learned to deal with other people who have angered them. They learn to deal with other people to get what they want, to get them in line. All I got to do is hit you, because that's what mommy does to get me to comply.
Like you said, when you're disciplining, a conversation must take place, right?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
And I was 100% agree. Every time I've had to yell or whatever other form of discipline to my children, they understand why this is happening.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Even, but I also, the other thing I always do after I show my anger and or express my frustration and or disappointment, etc., I conclude with, I am like this because I love you. You know I love you. I said, how many things do you care? Do you get happy, sad, this, that, and about that you don't care about? Nothing.
I also.
So that part is important. So now my question to you is: you taught her a lesson unbeknownst to you, you was teaching her a lesson in the back seat. She got that lesson. She's not going to forget that lesson she got, because that was a serious lesson, especially as passionate as you was. What, if anything, did you say to express to her that your action or response to that or whatever was not the correct one to take on, etc. So on?
Well,
Or did
sometimes
you do
like
that? Did you do
I
that?
did.
Did
I
you do
always
that?
do that. When I if I yell and I because typically if I'm yelling and I usually feel guilty about it, like oh I shouldn't have yelled or that was too loud or that was too much. I usually feel very guilty. But even when I don't feel guilty, I always say something afterward. If it's too much, I'll always say, you know what, mommy's sorry that I yelled. That was a little too loud. I'm sorry about that. Because I also want to relay the message, hey, if you make mistakes, if you feel like you did something wrong, it's okay to apologize. Mommy's modeling that behavior by apologizing to you. I can humble myself and apologize to my children, and because we didn't get apologies. When our parents did something that they probably shouldn't have done, they're not going to be like, oh, well, sorry about that. No, I humble myself and say, you know what, mommy's sorry. Mommy's sorry that I yelled. That wasn't right. I shouldn't have yelled. Mommy got a little too upset. Or I say, mommy yelled because, do you understand why I said what I said? And I'm yelling because X, Y, and Z. In that situation, what I told her was, okay, Sarai, you know, that's not appropriate language for you as a child. Okay. I don't want to hear that. Don't use that language. I said, mommy ended up getting a little too upset because that guy was acting really crazy, but that's not the appropriate way to deal with that. Because I don't want to be a hypocrite, but I also it's hard. It's a fine line. In the moment, I try to explain it the best way that I can in a way that she can understand it without sounding like I don't know what I'm talking about or I'm just making up some shit as I go along or being a hypocrite. It's difficult too because we are dealing with our own emotions at the time. And I feel like, thank God, I've gotten better at handling my emotions in the moment and catching myself a whole lot quicker. Like, okay, you know what? You need to calm down. This guy has driven off, and he's going on about his day. I'm not going to go follow him. I'm not going to go do nothing crazy. I'm not, especially with my children in the car, I'm not going to play around. I think that's probably what made me even more angry because it's not like I wasn't brake checking him. I wasn't driving slow on purpose. I'm driving the regular speed limit. There's cars in front of me. We're just going down the road. And this guy's driving crazy, reckless. That's why he decided to drive into oncoming traffic just to go around everybody else because he's got whatever he's got going on. He's cussing everybody out. But I said, you know what? I need to check myself and watch my behavior so that if my children start acting like that, then that puts me in the position to discipline them. And then if I do something, if I discipline them for doing the same thing I did, then I lose leverage there. I lose credibility. And that I feel like is a whole lot more important than anything else, is that when you're disciplining your children, I feel like you have to have credibility in what you're saying and in what you're doing. Because when your children start to lose confidence in you, then they're not going to follow your directives anyway. They may just be like, okay, yes, and be compliant in the moment just so you'll stop, so you'll go away. But then the important stuff is not going to resonate with them.
Well, you
They'll
know
go
what,
off
though?
and they'll learn from the street. And that is one of my bigger fears, is that they're not listening to me because I've lost credibility with them. I've lost trust. They don't trust what I'm saying. They don't trust what I'm doing. I am not a
Right.
trusted adult to them. And being their only parent, there's a very heavy weight on me to set a proper example. So each day, with each instance where discipline is required, I just try to do better and better every time.
Well, the benefit there, though, I think, to both of your points, but I think the benefit is we're not going to be perfect, but I think saying sorry is a big deal. I think that's a big gain. I think parents of our generation have made because parents of the past didn't really do sorry. They may have said it in a nonverbal way, right? You may have seen that in a certain way as far as the nonverbals, but they didn't really be like, I'm sorry, or I made a mistake, because parents were always trying to hold up this, this thing about, there was a pride there too. You know what I'm saying? Like, children are to be seen, not heard, and stuff like that. So I think that, like I said earlier, I gave my kids probably about two whoopings. And the funny thing is that we've gotten to the point of point you made earlier, Ian, about we built a certain level of rapport with each other where I don't need to do that. And I've learned that I don't really want to do that. What I wanted to play for you guys real quick was something that I thought was interesting. It's funny, but it's about the instinct of what parents do. This is more centered around dads, right? I don't know if you guys ever saw the shut up challenge that people do on TikTok. It'll be a situation where the kids and the mom is playing like a prank where the mom will ask the kid to do something and the kid will be like, nah, shut up, mom. And they want to see how the dad's going to react.
Raven, didn't I tell you go do them dishes? Ma, I do it when I feel like it. Shut up.
Hey, who the fuck you talking to?
My mother.
No, you're not. You get your ass up and go do the motherfucking dishes. What's wrong with you?
Did you clean up that room like I asked you to?
Ah, dang. Why you gotta keep this? Just shut up. Okay, shut up. I'm tired of it. Shut up.
Who is it?
It's a joke. It's a prank. It's a prank.
Boy, you about to get your ass up, boy.
It's a prank.
Jaden, can you take out the trash? Jaden, can you please take out the trash right now?
Shut up.
Babe.
What the fuck did you just say? Hey, it's a joke.
It's a joke, it's a joke, it's a joke, it's a joke.
What did you guys think about the reaction? Because I don't think the reactions were scripted. That, especially that second dad who was sitting there eating his macaroni or whatever, the ball guy, because he kind of stopped in the middle of eating, and it was the people around him obviously are playing the joke, but the dads, those were like serious reactions. Even that last dad, he could barely get out of his reclining chair, and he threw something at his son. So what I thought was interesting about it was the reaction of when parents hear, especially dads, when they hear a level of disrespect, although it's a prank, but assuming in their 10 seconds when they thought it was real, that immediate reaction. A lot of dads get up and they're like, I'm gonna handle this right now. You must be out of your mind. You must be crazy. And they'll go right to that thing. But I think it was very realistic. That's what I would say as far as the reaction.
In most homes, the fathers are the disciplinarians. In most homes,
Right.
if there's a father in the household, he's the one who's like, "Don't let me tell dad." That's
Correct.
usually the conversation, right?
Well,
Right.
I think
That's
I think there's- I
usually
think there's-
so. That and men are typically the protectors as well.
Correct.
Instinctively protectors. So you got those two dynamics in play in those situations. Go ahead, yeah.
No, what I was going to say was that there's an emotional component to that, because how many of us, if our child was like, "Shut up," you gonna buck up like, "Wait a minute, hold the hell on." How many of us are really initially, your initial response is going to be like, "Well, wait a minute, son. You shouldn't be saying shut up because that's not right. That's disrespectful."
No, but
Your
he was
first
talking to the
instinct
mother. They were
is
all
to
talking
start
to the
shooting.
mother, though. He was protecting the mother. His
No,
wife,
but I'm
protecting the mother of the
no,
child.
that
They
I get
never,
that.
they never directed shut up to the dad, mind you. It was directed to somebody
I
else.
get that. But when we're just talking about discipline, though,
How would the mothers
discipline,
respond? Now, that would be different.
how would I feel?
No, if the father and the child were part of the prank, and the child says "shut up" to dad, the mother, I think, would be more in shock than anything
Yeah,
else.
different ball game.
I just think
Well,
it's a
yeah,
different.
I mean,
I just think she'd be shocked. Like, what you said? Shut up
that's
to your
true.
dad?
Well, we
You
don't
You
want
want
to
can't
we
be
don't want to
disrespectful
conflate
and
two
you
different
fear
things.
it,
So
right?
at Ian's point, I understand that there's a dynamic in that video. Obviously, that's the dad is protecting the mom, right?
Mm-hmm.
So and then you have a situation where if the mom is disciplining at the time and she's getting the disrespect directly from the child, she's gonna go in too. So actually, a lot of the violence and a lot of the actual abuse actually comes more from women, honestly, statistically. But reason why I played it and the dynamics aside from the joke, I was really talking about the reaction of that was just a dad's example, but the reaction to go straight to physical is what I was really looking at, and I found that interesting preparing to talk about this tonight because I'm like a lot of times, and these look like everyday dads, not they don't seem like dads who are abusive or who are you know James Evans with the belt ready to whoop JJ and Michael, at a drop of a dime over everything. These just look like dads who are kind of chilling, but it's like it's the example of if the kid was to be super disrespectful all of a sudden, what's the dad's first reaction? And yes, the dynamic of protecting the mom or the disrespect, it's like the audacity to be that disrespectful to the mom, let alone be disrespectful directly to him. You see these dads go straight to physical, and I think it's quite normal, to be honest with you. Um, but I think that it's a challenge as a parent with these hypotheticals if your child was to be that disrespectful, because I believe there are some kids who are that disrespectful, and it's not always, we all known I've known some badass kids who had some really good parents.
It's a
Yeah.
learned behavior, and I hate to put it all on the kids. These bad behaviors are as a result of learning, mimicking what they've seen adults do, or the lack of guidance that they
Right.
did.
Yeah, I agree.
It's not from
Saying it's a lack of
happenstance.
guidance.
No, I'm not. I'm
It's
not
not.
saying. I'm
It's
not saying it's just I'm not saying it just happens, but I'm saying that you. All
no,
I'm
but
saying is that
to the point that because we all say, and I'm not just talking about you. I hear this a lot. Yo, these some badass kids. These some badass kids and badass kids. They're badass kids are typically badass kids because they have badass parents. Not There's a difference between being a mother or father and being a parent. If you're not parenting, some people are lazy at
I agree.
parenting. Similar fashion where people, you know, everybody wants the wedding, but nobody's ready for the marriage.
I agree.
You have to be willing to do certain things to be successful or to make success. You have to be willing to put in the time. You have to be willing. Like I take as an example, like come on, kids, show them how to properly separate their clothes, load up the washing machine, detergent, fabric softener, whatever. People don't want to take the time anymore. Instead of they just want to send them to the washing machine and then hope that they
Sure.
know how to do it. And if they mess up, then they just screaming and yelling at this and the other. But if you took the time to show them
Mm-hmm.
how to handle that, you wouldn't have to just skip to this part and now you're yelling and screaming and correcting behavior that they were never properly taught how to handle.
I think how kids are acting definitely has a lot to do with has 90 probably 95% to do with social media. But I think that the evolution of parenting. I think there's lazy parents. So you have extremes, right? So you have some really lazy parents, you have really involved parents, and you also have parents who are kind of in the middle. And parenting is learning. You're constantly learning. You think you have it right, and you learn lessons. You carry what your parents did. You carry your past trauma. All these things you're carrying with you. So I think that I agree with you, but I do think that the the aspect of, and I'm not here to tell people what's right or wrong, but the aspect of what's abuse versus discipline, I think, is something that Because keep in mind, even in still in certain states, I don't think in New Jersey or a few other states, but they're still legal in some states for teachers to actually discipline you physically. And teachers used to discipline kids physically.
Missouri.
In Missouri, yeah.
It's still
So
legal in Missouri.
yeah, so I think that the world is kind of evolving through study to understand, like, okay, maybe we had it wrong. Maybe that doesn't help the kids. But at the same time, you make a great point, Ian, is that a lot of people would say, okay, these kids are bad as hell now because of they're not getting beaten, because they're not getting their butt whooped. They're bad now. And I hear a lot of people attribute the degenerate behavior to that. But you're absolutely right. A lot of the degenerate behavior is because of the influences of what they have and lack of parenting. But I found it interesting, because a lot of that beating and going to physical is attributed to black people a lot. And I saw a lot. Those were just a few videos, but I saw a lot of other groups of people who was going straight to physical too.
Let me say it's advertised for black people a
Right.
lot.
Right.
White folks don't broadcast their business like that. They do the exact same level of discipline that we do.
Right.
They don't. One, theirs is a bit controlled, but they just don't advertise it, bro. When I was in Great Lakes, when I got called up after 9/11, they called my office to chair because I sat down and talked to white kids who were abused by parents, Filipino kids who were abused by parents, black kids who were abused by parents, white kids who were abused by parents. They would send these 4 groups of men to me at least once a quarter to sit down and have a conversation. They started calling my office to chair. We got to go see Petty Officer Briscoe because they came from dysfunctional homes.
Mm-hmm.
One of the kids who actually got in trouble, we used to call him Eminem. We used to call him Eminem because he looked like Eminem, one, but he was a white kid and he was real hype, real skinny dude, but his strength was off the rails. Dude was bench pressing 220 and didn't even look like he had muscles. But he knew he knew he was not supposed to be drinking. And he happened to be dating one of the finest young sailors on the base. And they were coming back to their barrack one night. And it was a brother who saw him. And the brother said something to him that was disrespectful and racist. And he played it cool. Took his girl upstairs to the room, went back downstairs, and he whooped that brother. Then the police department showed up. And he was like, y'all need to call Petty Officer Briscoe. Y'all need to call Chief. And they wouldn't do it. That dude put 4 police officers in the hospital.
Damn. Okay.
His mom was a meth addict and a schizophrenic.
Wow.
He grew up very harsh and very rough. So it's not just our kids. It's just It's advertised when it comes to us because that's what fits the media narrative.
They do perpetuate this idea that, especially Caucasian families are the gentle parenting,
right.
and just like the stereotype, right? And just like
Snap. Just like Snap. Who's on? I mean, the stereotype is. I'm gonna shut up. Yeah.
No, I hear what you're saying. There's a stereotype that people play up the same way that there's black people that buy into the stereotype.
Are you covering your microphone?
Your microphone again.
No, I'm not. I'm not covering it. I got it right here in my hand. Can you hear me better?
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So just like there's a stereotype that black people play into and feel like, okay, well, I'm black, I got to be tough, I got to beat my kids, I got to do all this and that. There's also a stereotype for other races, particularly white people, that, okay, we're supposed to gentle parent, and okay, Billy, you told me to shut up, and that's not nice, Billy, and you can't talk to me like that, and all that gentle parenting stuff, which is,
that's black people. We wear it as a badge, though. You know what I'm saying?
Right, we do wear it as a badge. It's like, if Billy got disrespectful, I'm gonna whoop Billy's ass.
Right. How many times you heard a sister or brother talk about, like, I was at Target the other day, I can't believe it. That boy was talking to his mama.
Yes.
Mom wanted to whoop his ass myself.
I have personally witnessed some white teenagers telling their moms to shut up or F you mommy and F you mom and all this stuff. And I have personally, when I
made your
read
blood
that,
boil.
it made my blood, yeah, exactly. And I thought my first response was, she should have been beating his ass when he was younger.
Right.
He wouldn't be talking to her like that,
Right.
you know.
Right.
And I feel like, okay, this is the reason why I feel like now I need to be having those conversations and be monitoring their behavior and guiding their behavior now, so I don't have to put hands on them now, and I don't have to put hands on them later. But I will if I have to, because I love my children enough to where if whooping their ass is going to save them from ruining their lives at some point, then I would do it if I felt that that was the last resort. But
Right.
one of the benefits of being a mental health therapist and working with children is knowing the tools that I need to use with my own children to say, okay, how do I need to get at you psychologically to get that psychological hold? And not really like a hold per se. I'm just using that as for lack of a better term. But to be able to get that psychological hold on my children to guide their behavior so I don't have to use physical discipline. And so that they will grow up and they will understand how to behave so that I don't have to whoop their ass when they get older and nobody else has to whoop their ass. Because I'm telling you, same way, if you don't get yourself together, if you ain't whooping your kids' ass, the police will whoop their ass.
Right.
Other people in the
started
street
off talking about that, right?
So
we started out talking about that. One thing, Coach Rook, I want to say.
Oh yeah.
In the videos, I want to point out it was very important that they did proximity in the video, right?
Yep.
Because believe me, had they been at that dinner table, sitting right next to Dad, had that happened, we probably would have saw all 5 of those boys either catch a fist or a chop to the throat. Right? Like they barely caught the last Dad, right? I mean, he was up like he was, they weren't expecting him to move out of that recliner that fast. Right?
Yeah.
I mean, he was getting ready to go into that kid's either his jaw or his neck because he cringed on him. But it's like
everybody was saying that. Yep.
Yeah,
everybody in the comments was saying that.
You had to have proximity because when you're doing a joke like that, the last thing you want is a child to be within reaching distance of that father, because that instinct is we don't play disrespect in this house.
Right. We don't play that.
So the dad who was eating, he had time to think, like, did I just hear?
Yeah, that's the
thought I heard. Because if he was right there, they may have had a plate full of macaroni in their face.
What would you have done?
Well, that's what I'm saying. Like, you know,
no, just straight up. If that was Sahar saying that,
I would have done the same thing. I would have done. I ain't gonna lie to you. I'd have done the same thing. I mean, I'll be honest with you, and I'm not gonna keep y'all on forever. So, but I'll just tell you right now. I'm honest. I'm kind of in the middle. I prefer to be gentle and loving, and I'm gonna talk to you. Like even when I gave my kids those whoopings a couple years ago, I talked to them longer. The whooping was very short, but I talked to them for a long time. I'm a believer. I talked to my kids when they were 3 and 4 and 5, the way you talk to 10-year-olds. I tell them what I expect from them. I talk to them. I'm big on that. So, but yeah, I'm gonna react like the dad eating that macaroni or whatever. Like, what you say? Are you kidding? So my kids, I'll just say what I think. I think I show them a lot of tenderness. They know I love them. I tell them multiple times a day. I kiss them when they go to school. I kiss them when they come home.
Right. But
let me finish. So but they also like, Dad is not a joke. Dad is not a game. You know what I'm saying? And you know what? To be honest with you, honestly, I think that I got that the way we were raised too. Like, you know, I didn't get a lot of whoopings, but I knew not to play games. Like, so I wanted my kids to know how much I love them. The only difference that I think I am, we've all kind of evolved, is to talk to them a lot more. When I make a mistake, I'd be like, you know what, that was my mistake. I'm sorry. You know what I'm saying? I've said that to my kids. I have no problem saying, you know what, that was a mistake. You know what, daddy was wrong for that. You know what I'm saying? So that's the difference. But I'm still not a game. I'm not something to play with either. Don't play around. So, but it's all part of that. So I say all that to say, um, I'm kind of like they said, Cliff Huxtable said, I brought you in this world, I'll take you out, and I don't really mean that, but we all understood that sentiment when he said that to Theo. I brought you in this world, I take you out. And it's to say that, you know what, I love you, but don't play with me. Don't play around. So
I
it's
love
all
you, but I'll
love.
beat your ass if I have to.
Yeah. So I'm not gonna hold y'all all night. I appreciate the panel as always. I know we just scratching the surface, but I appreciate y'all time and input and insight. I think this is a great topic. So,
Yeah, much more. There's a lot more we can get into this on this
definitely.
topic.
Definitely.
Yeah, man. Looking forward to part 2. If you invite me back, I'll definitely be a part
Oh
of it.
man, come on. You always invited back. So
Family.
so
Family,
you know how it
Tony.
is. But
Thank you very much.
Yeah, no
I
doubt.
appreciate y'all though.
Again, good to see you again.
No doubt.
Y'all always
Love
hard.
y'all.
Oh,
See y'all
Joe.
Yes.
soon.
Your
So
fellow
we'll get back. We'll
Joe.
get back for another one, man. I appreciate all y'all, man.
All right, you got it, man.
No
All
doubt.
right, y'all.
Love